My knees protested with every step up the narrow stairwell. 68 steps to the 4th floor. I'd counted them every month for the past 4 years. At 65, my body wasn't what it used to be, especially after spending all day hunched over my sewing machine finishing Mrs. Patterson's wedding dress. The intricate beadwork had taken hours, and my fingers still ached from guiding each tiny pearl into place. But this was Friday, November 5th, 2024, and Fridays meant one thing: payment day. The envelope in my coat pocket felt heavier than it should. 8 crisp $100 bills fresh from the bank that morning. $800. To most people, maybe it didn't sound like much, but when you're living on a seamstress's Social Security check, and whatever alterations you can pick up around the neighborhood, $800 might as well be $8,000. It was groceries for the month. It was the heating bill. It was everything I'd scraped together by hemming pants, taking in waistlines, and creating custom wedding gowns for brides who couldn't afford the bridal shops downtown. But I'd made a promise, and Charlotte Morrison kept her promises. Baltimore in early November carried a chill that seeped through brick and bone. The row houses on Eastern Avenue had stood for nearly 80 years, narrow 3-story buildings pressed shoulder to shoulder like old soldiers holding each other up. Mine was number 1247. My daughter-in-law Amelia lived at 1305, just 2 blocks north. Close enough to walk, too far to feel like family. I reached the 4th floor landing and paused to catch my breath. The hallway smelled of old wood and someone's dinner, maybe cabbage, maybe beans. Through the thin walls I could hear a television, the muffled sounds of a game show host's enthusiastic voice. My chest tightened. And not just from the climb. This monthly ritual never got easier. 4 years. 49 payments. 1 more to go and I'd be free of this weight. I knocked on the door marked 4B. 3 sharp raps the way I always did. Silence. I waited, shifting my weight off my bad knee, the one that had started acting up after years of working the foot pedal on my industrial sewing machine. Through the door I could hear that television more clearly now. Some cartoon. The sound of children's laughter from the speakers. Ethan must be watching. My grandson. 7 years old now, though I barely saw him anymore. Amelia said the boy needed stability routine. Said my visits upset him, reminded him too much of his father. The deadbolt clicked. The door opened 6 inches, stopped by a security chain. Amelia's face appeared in the gap. 38 years old, but she looked older somehow. Dark hair pulled back tight. Eyes ringed with shadows that the dim hallway light made worse. "Charlotte." Her voice was flat. No warmth, just acknowledgement. "Amelia." I kept my voice even respectful. "I brought this month's payment." I pulled the envelope from my pocket and held it up so she could see. She didn't open the door wider. Instead, her hand shot through the gap, fingers extended. "You're late. It's after 5. I glanced at my watch. 5:15. "I had a fitting across town. The traffic was, She snatched the envelope from my hand. The chain rattled as she pulled back, and I heard the quick rifle of paper as she checked inside. Not counting it exactly, just confirming it was there. "Is Ethan home?" I asked, leaning slightly to try to see past her. I thought maybe I could say hello. It's been 3 weeks since he's sleeping, but I could still hear the television. That cartoon was definitely playing. The bright, cheerful music filtered through the apartment. "It's 5:30, I said carefully. "Isn't that a little early for—" "He had a long day at school." Her tone sharpened. "Look, Charlotte, I appreciate you keeping up with the payments. I really do, but now's not a good time." Something in her voice made me pause. Not just the usual coldness. Amelia had been distant since the day my son died. No, this was different. Nervous almost. Her eyes darted past me to the stairwell, then back. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Everything's fine." She started to close the door. "I'll tell Ethan you stopped by." "Amelia, wait. I just wanted to—" The door shut. The deadbolt slid home with a heavy thunk that echoed in the narrow hallway. I stood there for a moment, hands still half raised. My reflection stared back at me from an old mirror someone had hung near the elevator that never worked. An old woman with thinning gray hair pulled into a practical bun. A worn canvas coat I'd owned for 15 years. Eyes that had seen too much loss. 4 years. 49 payments of $800 each. $39,200. Not counting the extra I'd given for Ethan's birthdays, for Christmas, for school supplies. all to pay off the debt my son had left behind when he went to Alaska and never came home. One more month, just one more, and I'd be free of this crushing weight. Maybe then Amelia would finally let me be part of Ethan's life again. Maybe then I could be a real grandmother instead of just the old woman who climbed those 68 steps every month with an envelope full of cash. I turned toward the stairs, my hand on the railing. That's when I heard it. A voice, deep, male, not from the television. I'd spent 35 years running Morrison's alterations. I knew the difference between TV speakers and a human voice in the same room. This was real. Someone was in that apartment talking. I froze, one foot on the top step. Amelia lived alone with Ethan. She'd told me that 100 times. Said she couldn't afford to date, couldn't afford to think about anyone but her son. Said every dollar went to keeping a roof over their heads and food on the table. That's why my $800 a month mattered so much. But there was a man in there right now, talking like he belonged there. I stood in that dim hallway, the autumn chill creeping through the old building's bones, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Just a cold, creeping question that wrapped around my heart like ice. Who was in my daughter-in-law's apartment? The walk home felt longer than usual. Maybe it was my aching knees. Maybe it was the weight of 4 years pressing down on my shoulders. Maybe it was that voice I'd heard deep and strangely familiar in a way I couldn't quite place. By the time I reached my front steps, the streetlights had flickered on, casting long shadows across the row of porches. Inside the house was quiet. Too quiet. It had been that way since Henry left. I didn't bother with most of the lights, just the small lamp in the living room. I dropped my keys into the ceramic bowl by the door, the one Henry had bought me at a craft fair in 1998, and sank into my recliner. The chair groaned under my weight, springs protesting like my knees had on Amelia's stairs. His photograph sat on the side table where it always did. Henry at 62, laughing silver hair, catching the sunlight. We'd been at Ethan's second birthday party. That was the last one he ever saw the boy celebrate. I picked up the frame and ran my thumb across the glass. "I made this month's payment, honey," I said to the empty room. 49 down. One more to go. The photograph didn't answer. It never did. It had been 4 years and 2 months since that March afternoon when everything changed. Mr. Bradley showed up on a Tuesday. Thin man, ill-fitting suit, battered briefcase. He said he was from the fishing company Austin worked for in Alaska. "There was an accident," he said, eyes fixed on the floor. "A fall during rough seas. By the time they got him to shore," he handed us a manila envelope. "Death certificate, company paperwork, an urn that felt too heavy and too light at the same time. I'm very sorry for your loss." Henry collapsed into my arms. I heard a sound come out of him, not a scream, just something hollow and broken that made my own chest cave in. Austin was gone, our only child. 36 years old. The next 6 months blurred into gray. Henry stopped eating, stopped sleeping. I'd wake at 3 in the morning and find him in the garage, just sitting in his car staring at nothing. He'd always been strong-worked construction for 40 years, built our house with his own hands, but grief hollowed him out from the inside. "It's just grief," the doctor said. "Give it time." Time only made it worse. On September 15th, I came home from the shop to find Henry on the garage floor, slumped against his toolbox, the left side of his face slack. Stroke. Massive, the paramedics said. Significant brain damage. He died 3 days later without waking up. The doctors blamed the stroke. I knew better. 6 months of grief had crushed Henry's heart until it simply gave up. My husband died of a broken heart, pure and simple. I was still numb from the funeral when Amelia came by. October 3rd. She wore black. Ethan, only 3 years old, then clutched her hand. "Charlotte, we need to talk about Austin's debt." I made coffee we didn't drink. She laid out bank statements I owe us overdue notices. Before Alaska, Austin had borrowed $40,000. Gambling debts, she said. Dangerous people. He'd promised to pay it back with his fishing wages. "Now they're calling," she said, voice shaking. Threatening. "I can't pay it, Charlotte. I barely cover rent as it is." She looked at Ethan, who was rolling a toy truck across my carpet, oblivious. What could I say? Let my grandson lose his home. Let dangerous people threaten a young widow. So I agreed. $800 a month. 50 months. I'd be 70 when it ended, but Ethan would be safe. One piece of Austin would remain. I set Henry's photo back on the table. Some nights I told him about my day. Tonight I didn't have the energy. That voice kept echoing in my head. The man's voice I'd heard in Amelia's apartment. Deep, comfortable, like he belonged there. I tried to push the thought away. Tried not to think about it. But as I climbed the stairs to bed, my knees aching with every step, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. Saturday morning, I was on Mrs. Robinson's porch replacing her front door light fixture. $50 for an hour's work. Not much, but every bit helped toward next month's payment. The November air was crisp, carrying the smell of someone's breakfast down the block. Bacon, maybe eggs. A normal Saturday morning in Baltimore, until Victoria Hayes appeared beside me, wringing her hands. "Charlotte?" Her voice was low, urgent. "I need to talk to you." I glanced down from my ladder. Victoria lived on the second floor of 1305, right below Amelia's apartment. 68-years-old widow for the past decade. Retired school teacher. Still had that teacher voice when she needed it. But right now she sounded nervous. "Morning, Victoria," I said, tightening the last screw on the fixture. "Give me just a second." "It's important." Something in her tone made me pause. I tested the light worked fine, then climbed down carefully. My knees didn't appreciate the ladder, but they didn't appreciate much these days. "What's going on?" Victoria looked around, checking if anyone was listening. The street was quiet except for some kids playing hopscotch 2 houses down. "It's about Amelia's place," she said quietly. "About last night." My chest tightened. "What about it?" "I couldn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I went out on my balcony for some air." She pulled her cardigan tighter, though the morning wasn't that cold. "I saw someone coming up the stairs. A man. Going to the 4th floor. Could have been anybody," I said, though my pulse quickened. "Charlotte." She stepped closer, lowered her voice even more. "This man moved different. He was limping. His left leg didn't move right, and his left shoulder dipped down when he walked. The screwdriver slipped from my hand, clattered on the concrete. Lots of people have limps," I managed to say. "Not like this." Victoria's eyes locked on mine. "Charlotte, I've lived in that building for 15 years. I saw your boy come and go 100 times before he went to Alaska." She paused, let the words settle. "That walk, that exact walk, I'd recognize it anywhere. The world seemed to tilt sideways." "Victoria," I said slowly, carefully. "Austin passed away 4 years ago. We have the death certificate. We buried—" I stopped. "We received his ashes." "Did you?" she asked softly. "Did you actually see him? Did anyone—" The question hit like a physical blow. We hadn't. Mr. Bradley had brought paperwork and earnest condolences. We'd taken it all at face value because who fakes their own death? "That's crazy," I said, but doubt crept into my voice. Victoria gripped my arm. "This man didn't knock. He pulled out a key, had it ready like he knew exactly which one it was. Opened that door and walked right in, like he lived there." The street sounds faded into background noise. Hours after I'd left. Hours after I'd heard that strange man's voice. "What time exactly?" I asked. 2 in the morning, maybe 2:15. I looked up at Amelia's windows. Dark curtains drawn like always. "The building management put in a security camera last month," Victoria said. "On the landing between the 3rd and 4th floors. For those break-ins, remember, I did. 3 apartments had been burglarized in September. The landlord finally installed cameras. The footage is saved digitally," Victoria continued. "Keeps it for weeks." She paused, studying my face. "Charlotte, you should look at it." "I can't just demand to see security footage," I said, but my mind was already working. Paul Henderson, my old friend, retired detective. Paul knew people. "Then find someone who can," Victoria said firmly. "Because I'm telling you, that man walked exactly like Austin used to walk after his motorcycle accident. And if I'm wrong, I'm just a foolish old woman." She didn't finish the thought. She didn't need to. If she was right, everything I'd believed for 4 years was a lie. Every payment, every tear Henry cried, every moment spent grieving, all built on lies. "Promise me you'll check," Victoria said. "For Henry's memory. He deserved better." I looked at this woman who'd taught 2nd grade for 30 years, who'd buried her own husband, who had no reason to lie to me. "I'll check," I said. "I promise." Victoria nodded and headed back toward the building. I watched her go, this small woman carrying a truth I wasn't ready to hear. I turned back to collect my tools, but my hands were shaking. The screwdriver I'd dropped lay on the concrete. I bent down, slowly picked it up with trembling fingers. What if Victoria was right? What if Austin, my boy, the son, I'd mourned, the child whose death had killed my husband, what if he'd been alive this whole time, 2 blocks away, walking through that door with his own key while I handed Amelia $800 every month? The pressure in my chest wasn't a heart attack, but it felt close, like breathing underwater, like trying to draw air through walls of doubt. I needed to call Paul. Today, Austin's motorcycle accident flashed through my mind. 2015. That Honda he'd refused to sell despite our warnings. Wet pavement. Bad judgment. He'd gone down hard, broke his left leg in 3 places. After that, he walked with a limp. Left shoulder dipping gait, never quite right. I'd watched him hobble around our house for months, trying to hide how much it hurt. Watched him favor that left side. Watched his shoulder dip when the leg got tired. I'd know that walk anywhere. Mrs. Robinson's door opened behind me. "Charlotte, you all right out here?" Her voice sounded far away. "Fine, Mrs. Robinson. Just dropped something." "Well, the light looks wonderful. Thank you, dear." She pressed bills into my hand, 2 20s and a 10. $50. I folded them mechanically, stuffed them in my pocket. $50. 3 hours of work at my age to earn what I handed Amelia in 1 envelope. And for what? To support a man who might not even be dead, no. It was crazy. Victoria was mistaken. Had to be. But that voice last night. Deep, comfortable, familiar. And Amelia's face when I'd asked about Ethan. Nervous, rushed, wanting me gone. 4 years of this. 4 years of climbing those stairs, making payments, barely seeing my grandson. All while Austin. I stopped the thought. Couldn't go there. Not until I knew for sure. But Victoria's words wouldn't leave. That man walked exactly like Austin used to walk. And she was right about one thing. I did know that walk. Had watched my son limp around for months after that accident. I'd know it anywhere. My hands were still shaking as I folded up the ladder. The morning sun warmed my back. Kids laughed down the street. Everything looked the same as 20 minutes ago. But nothing was the same. I'd promised Victoria I'd check that camera footage. But even as I made that promise, standing there with my hands trembling and my chest tight, a small voice in the back of my mind was already asking the question I didn't want to face. What if she was right? I didn't sleep that night. Victoria's words played on a loop. That man walked exactly like your Austin used to walk. By the time Sunday morning light crept through my bedroom window, I'd been staring at the ceiling for hours. My decision was made. I needed to see that footage. I needed to know. I called Paul Henderson at 8 o'clock. He answered on the 3rd ring, voice rough with sleep. "Charlotte, everything okay?" "I need a favor, Paul. A big one." My mother, and eventually opened Morrison's Alterations. Paul had joined the Baltimore Police Department. Worked his way up to detective. 28 years on the force before retiring. We'd stayed in touch over the decades. Coffee once a month. Helping each other with odd jobs. He'd helped me move my industrial sewing machine when I downsized my shop. I'd altered his daughter's wedding dress for free. That's what 47 years of friendship bought you, trust without questions. 20 minutes later, I'd explained everything. The payments to Amelia, Victoria seeing someone on the stairs, the limp, the key, the voice I'd heard. Paul didn't interrupt, didn't ask if I was sure. When I finished, there was silence on the line. "Give me a few hours," he said finally. "I know someone at Secure Tech. They installed systems in half the buildings on the east side." "Paul, don't thank me yet. Let's see what we find first." He called back at 3 that afternoon. "Come over, bring coffee. You're going to need it." Paul lived in a small row house in Fells Point, 15 minutes from my place. By the time I arrived with 2 coffees from the corner shop, he had his laptop open on the kitchen table. A USB drive stuck out from the side. "My contact pulled the last 3 months, Paul said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "September through November. Took him an hour to extract it, but he owed me a favor." I sat down slowly, the coffee forgotten in my hand. The laptop screen showed a grid of dates and timestamps. Security camera footage organized by date. "Where do you want to start?" Paul asked. "November 6th, I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. The night after I made this month's payment. Paul clicked. The screen went black for a moment, then video appeared. Grainy, black and white. The timestamp in the upper right corner glowing pale November 6th, 2024, 1:47:23 a.m. The camera angle showed the landing between 3rd and 4th floors. Stairs visible on the left. Amelia's door barely in frame on the right. The hallway was empty, silent. The kind of dead-of-night stillness you only get when everyone's asleep. Right here, Paul said, quietly pointing. At 01:47, a shadow appeared at the bottom of the frame. Someone climbing the stairs. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. The figure emerged into clearer view. A man, average height, wearing a dark jacket and baseball cap pulled low. A face mask covered most of his features. He moved carefully like someone who didn't want to make noise, but it was the walk that made my chest tighten. Right foot stepped normally, heel to toe, smooth and even. But the left foot it dragged slightly, not quite lifting all the way, and when weight shifted to that left side, his whole body compensated. The left shoulder dropped. The torso tilted just a degree or two. For half a second, the limp was unmistakable. "Jesus," I whispered. The man reached Amelia's door at 01:47:48. He didn't knock, didn't hesitate. His hand went straight to his jacket pocket, pulled out a key ring, selected one with the ease of someone who'd done it 100 times before. The door opened. He slipped inside. Door closed. Timestamp 01:47:55. 8 seconds from stairs to inside. Like he lived there. That's... I couldn't finish the sentence. "Run it again," Paul asked. I nodded. We watched it 3 more times. Each time the same details jumped out. The uneven gait, the weight shift, the way his left side seemed to carry less load than his right, like the leg underneath couldn't quite handle it. After the accident, I heard myself say he always walked like that. The 2015 motorcycle wreck. Broke his left leg. Did damage to the hip joint. Doctors put in pins, did what they could, but he was never the same. I swallowed hard. That exact walk, that exact compensation pattern. I watched him hobble around our house for 6 months. Paul's expression hadn't changed, but his jaw was tight. Let me check the other months. He pulled up October 5th, the night after my October payment. Same timestamp, give or take a few minutes. 2:13 a.m. Same figure, same limp, same key, same door. September 5th, 01:52 a.m. Same man. August 5th, 02:04 a.m. Same man. A pattern, clear as day. The night after every payment, this person showed up between 1 and 3 in the morning. Let himself into Amelia's apartment. Stayed until Paul fast-forwarded about 5 a.m., then left the same way he'd come. Every single month. "Charlotte." Paul's voice was careful, measured. "You said the company told you Austin died in March 2020. March 15th, I said. My own voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Mr. Bradley brought the paperwork. Said there was an accident on a fishing boat. Rough seas. Austin fell, hit his head. By the time they got him to shore..." I trailed off. "And you got an urn," Paul said. "Cremated remains. We buried it at Oakwood Cemetery. Henry and I stood there and watched them put the urn in the ground." Paul was quiet for a long moment. Then he rewound the November footage, paused it on the clearest frame of the man's walk, left leg dragging, shoulder dropping, that telltale hitch in his stride. "I was a detective for 28 years, Paul said slowly. "I've seen a lot of surveillance footage, and that," he pointed at the screen, "that's not just someone with a limp, that's a specific gait pattern, the kind that comes from a specific injury." I stared at the frozen image, at the figure halfway up the stairs, left foot not quite clearing the step, weight already shifting wrong in anticipation of the bad landing. That was my son's walk. I'd know it anywhere, had watched him struggle with it for years, watched him try to hide it and fail, watched him get angry when people stared. "It's Austin," I said. The words came out flat, factual. "That's my son." Paul didn't argue, didn't try to offer alternate explanations, just nodded once and closed the laptop. The kitchen was suddenly too quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming, a car passing outside, someone's television through the wall. Normal sounds, Sunday afternoon sounds. But nothing was normal anymore. That night, Paul and I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow notepad between us. For the first time in 4 years, I felt something other than grief. It was anger. Pure, focused anger. My son was alive. Austin was alive. And for 4 years, he'd let me believe otherwise. He'd let his father die thinking he was gone. He'd taken my money, $39,000, while hiding in the shadows like a thief. But why? Paul tapped his pen against the notepad. "Charlotte, we need evidence. Real evidence. Something that'll hold up." "I know," I said, my jaw tight. "The video is a start," Paul continued. "But it's grainy. Someone could argue it's not him, just someone who walks like him. We need more." I nodded. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from rage. Paul pulled the notepad closer and started writing. "Here's what we do. Step 1. We follow Amelia. See where she goes, who she meets. If Austin's alive, she's the connection." "She's been taking my money all this time," I said, my voice hard. "She looked me in the eye every month." "Which means she's part of it," Paul said. "Step 2, we check the financials. You've been paying $800 a month for 49 months. Where's that money going?" I thought about the envelope I'd handed Amelia just 2 nights ago, the crisp bills, the way she'd snatched it without a word of thanks. "Step 3, Paul continued. "We find where Austin's been hiding, probably somewhere close enough to come back every month. He's got a routine. We figure out that routine, we've got him." "And step 4, I asked. Paul's expression darkened. "We investigate Mr. Bradley, the man who told you Austin was dead. If Austin faked his death, Bradley was part of it." The name made my stomach turn. Mr. Bradley had stood in my living room 4 years ago telling me my son had drowned in the Bering Sea. I'd believed every word. "He said he worked for the fishing company," I said quietly. "King Salmon Processing in Kodiak, Alaska." "Then we start there," Paul said. "We find out if Bradley's real, if the company's real, and if there was ever an accident." I stared at the notepad. 4 steps, 4 ways to uncover the truth. But there was one thing I couldn't reconcile. "Paul," I said slowly, "what do I tell Ethan?" Paul looked up, his face serious. "Nothing. You tell him nothing." "He's 7 years old," I said. "He asks about me. What if he says something to Amelia?" "That's exactly why we don't tell him," Paul said firmly. "Kids can't keep secrets, Charlotte. If Ethan knows, Amelia knows. And if Amelia knows we're onto her, she'll warn Austin. He'll disappear. We'll lose him." I closed my eyes. Ethan's face flashed through my mind, his gap-toothed smile, the way he used to run to me when I came to visit before Amelia started limiting my time with him. He was innocent in all this. He didn't deserve to be caught in the middle. "Okay," I said quietly. "We keep him out of it." Paul nodded. "Good. Now here's the hard part, Charlotte. You need to ask yourself, what are you looking for? Justice, revenge, closure?" I opened my eyes and looked at him. "I need to know why. Why he let Henry die. Why he made me believe he was gone. Why he took my money and hid like a coward." "That's the right answer," Paul said. "Because once we start this, there's no going back. You'll get your answers, but you might not like them." I thought about Henry, about the way he'd collapsed in the garage, about the stroke that took him 6 months after we buried that urn of lies. "I've been living in a lie for 4 years, I said, my voice steady. "It's time for the truth." Paul placed his hand on my shoulder. "Then we start tomorrow. Monday morning we follow Amelia, and we don't stop until we find him." Tuesday afternoon I texted Amelia, told her I'd pick up Ethan from school. It was the perfect cover to watch her. She texted back after 20 minutes. "Fine, 3 p.m., bring him back by 7. "No thank you. No, that's so sweet of you. Just permission, like I was asking to borrow her car instead of spend time with my own grandson." At 2:45 p.m., I pulled up to Ethan's elementary school in my old Honda. Paul was waiting 3 blocks away in his sedan engine, running eyes on Amelia's building through binoculars. Ethan ran out at 3:10, backpack bouncing on his shoulders. His face lit up when he saw me. "Grandma?" He threw his arms around my waist. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, ruffling his hair. "How was school?" "Good. We learned about fractions today. Mrs. Peterson said I'm really good at them." "Fractions, huh? You're getting so smart." I buckled him into the passenger seat. When had he gotten so big, and texted Paul. "Got him. You're clear." Paul's reply came seconds later. "Copy that. Watching the door." I drove Ethan to Domino's on Eastern Avenue, ordered him a pepperoni pizza and let him play on the arcade machine in the corner while we waited. My phone buzzed at 4:32 p.m. Paul, she's moving, dressed up, heading east on foot. I glanced at Ethan, who was focused on shooting cartoon aliens on the screen. Keep playing, sweetheart. I'll be right here. I watched my phone. Paul sent updates every few minutes. Paul passing the laundromat, walking fast. Paul turned south on Conkling Street. Paul stopping at a coffee shop. Corner Brew. My chest tightened. Corner Brew was 3 blocks from Amelia's apartment. A small cafe with big windows and outdoor seating. Henry and I used to get coffee there on Sunday mornings back when he was alive. At 4:45 p.m., Paul sent a photo. Grainy, taken from across the street, but clear enough. Amelia sat at a corner table inside the cafe. A latte in front of her. Across from her sat a man. He was about 40. Clean-shaven with short dark hair and broad shoulders. He wore a gray jacket and jeans. His posture was relaxed, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. And his hand was resting on top of Amelia's. I zoomed in on the photo, my pulse pounding. The man's face was familiar. I'd seen it before, years ago in Austin's high school yearbook. At backyard barbecues. At our house on Thanksgiving. Dylan Reeves, Austin's best friend since 10th grade. What, Grandma? Ethan looked up from the arcade machine. Nothing, sweetheart, I said quickly, forcing a smile. Just checking messages. I texted Paul. That's Dylan Reeves, Austin's best friend from high school. Paul's response was immediate. Best friend doesn't look like friendship to me. He was right. I looked at the photo again, studying their body language. Amelia was leaning forward, her fingers curled around her latte cup. Dylan was talking, gesturing with his free hand, but his other hand stayed on hers. They weren't just talking. They were comfortable, intimate. Another photo came through at 5:05 p.m. This one showed Dylan leaning closer, his lips near Amelia's ear. She was smiling a real smile, not the cold, tight-lipped expression she gave me. Me. How long have they been in there? Paul, 30 minutes, still going. I felt sick, not because of the affair, if that's what it was, but because of what it meant. If Amelia was involved with Dylan and Austin was alive, then this wasn't just about money. This was planned, coordinated. At 5:18 p.m., Paul texted, "They're leaving, separately. She's heading north, he's heading south. Me, follow him, Paul, already on it." I paid for Ethan's pizza and drove him back to Amelia's apartment at 6:50 p.m. She answered the door in the same clothes she'd worn to the cafe. Black sweater, dark jeans, hair still in that tight ponytail. "He was good," I said, my voice neutral. "We had fun." "Thanks." Amelia pulled Ethan inside without meeting my eyes. As I walked back down the stairs, my phone buzzed. Paul Dylan went to a warehouse, Ponca Street Industrial Area, got the address, 2847 Ponca. I stopped on the landing between the 3rd and 4th floors, the same spot where the security camera had caught Austin. My hands gripped the railing. Me. "Good work." Paul called me 10 minutes later. I was sitting in my car outside my apartment, staring at the steering wheel. "Charlotte," he said, voice serious, "your daughter-in-law's got more secrets than we thought." "I know," I said quietly. "Dylan Reeves." "You sure he was Austin's friend?" "Best friend," I said. "They were inseparable in high school. Played football together, got in trouble together. When Austin left for Alaska, Dylan was the one who drove him to the airport." "Well, he's not acting like a grieving friend now," Paul said. "Whatever's going on, he's part of it." I closed my eyes. Austin, Amelia, Dylan. 3 people I'd trusted. 3 people who'd lied to me. "We keep watching," I said. "Find out what's in that warehouse." "Already planning on it," Paul said. "Tomorrow night." Paul worked through the night. When I arrived at his house Wednesday morning, he looked exhausted. Bloodshot eyes, pale face, empty coffee cups scattered across his kitchen table. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked. He shook his head. "Couldn't. I had to follow the money trail before it went cold." He gestured to the laptop in front of him. Spreadsheets filled the screen. Bank statements, transaction histories. "Sit down, Charlotte. You need to see this." I sat down slowly, my stomach already churning. "I called in a favor," Paul said. "A contact at PNC Bank. Someone who owed me from an old case. He pulled Amelia's transaction history, publicly available stuff, nothing illegal, just patterns. He turned the laptop so we could both see. Look at this. Amelia's checking account. 4 years of deposits and withdrawals. A spreadsheet appeared on screen. Rows and rows of numbers. Every month, Paul said, pointing, Amelia receives 2 deposits. The first one's yours, $800. You can see it here. September through November, every month, like clockwork. I saw the entries. $800, $800, $800. My money deposited like I was paying rent. But here's what's interesting, Paul continued. Within 24 hours of your deposit, Amelia transfers the money out again. He clicked to another tab. To this account. An LLC registered in Delaware. Shell company called Coastal Consulting Services. No office, no employees, just a business address. What does that mean? I asked. It means someone's hiding money, Paul said. But here's the bigger issue. Look at Amelia's monthly expenses. He pulled up another sheet. Rent $1,200 a month. Food and groceries $400 minimum. Utilities, electric, water, internet about $150. That's $1,750 a month minimum. And that's not counting clothes for Ethan's school supplies or anything extra. I did the math in my head. $1,750 a month for 4 years. She doesn't work, I said quietly. No job, no employer. Exactly, Paul said. So if your $800 doesn't cover her expenses, and it clearly doesn't, where's the rest coming from? He clicked to another tab. Deposits. Every month since October 2020, Amelia receives a second deposit. $1,500. I stared at the screen. $1,500. $1,500. $1,500. Month after month after month. Who's paying her? I asked. That's what I spent all night trying to figure out, Paul said. The money comes from the same LLC, Coastal Consulting Services. But when I traced the LLC's funding, he pulled up another document. A wire transfer record. November 4th, the day after you made payment 49. Someone transferred $87,450 out of that Delaware account. My vision blurred. $87,000 to an offshore account in Grand Cayman, Paul said. Joint account held by Amelia Morrison and Dylan Reeves. The room tilted. They already moved it, I whispered. Yeah, Paul said. While Austin's sitting somewhere thinking he's got another month before he runs, Amelia and Dylan have already emptied the account and sent the money overseas. I leaned back in my chair. My hands were shaking. Paul, I've paid $39,200 over 4 years. Where did the other $48,000 come from? Paul pulled up another spreadsheet. That's the question, isn't it? Best guess Austin's been contributing too. Probably from odd jobs, cash work under fake names. And there might be other sources we haven't found yet. He paused, looking at me carefully. Charlotte, your $800 a month isn't what's keeping Amelia afloat. She's getting $1,500 from somewhere else. Your money is insurance, I finished, to keep me distracted, to keep me from asking questions. Exactly, Paul said. Think about it. If Amelia suddenly had money, new car, expensive clothes, moving to a better place, you'd wonder where it came from. But if she's still struggling, still barely making rent, still taking your money every month, then I keep believing the story, I said. I keep thinking she needs my help. Paul nodded. It's not about the money, Charlotte. It's about control, keeping you busy, keeping you grateful that she lets you see Ethan, keeping you from looking too closely at anything. I thought about all those months, all those trips up 68 stairs, all those times Amelia snatched the envelope without a word of thanks. She'd been playing me for 4 years. There's more, Paul said quietly. More, and I looked at him. He pulled up another document. I did some digging into your finances, too. Hope you don't mind. What did you find? Henry had a life insurance policy, $150,000. When Austin died, or supposedly died, you were the primary beneficiary. I nodded slowly. I used most of it. $90,000 to pay off the house and Henry's medical bills. The rest went into savings. About $60,000. Paul's expression was grim. Charlotte, when's the last time you checked that savings account? My stomach dropped. I don't know. Maybe 6 months ago, a year. Paul turned the laptop toward me. My bank statement filled the screen. Current balance $8,247.83. I stared at the number. That's not right. There should be 60,000 in there. Look at the transaction history, Paul said. I scrolled down. Withdrawals. Hundreds of them. Small amounts at first, 200 here, 500 there. Then larger. 1,000. 2,000. 3,000. What is this? I whispered. Do you remember signing any financial documents for Amelia? Paul asked. In the last few years, maybe she said it was for estate planning or just in case paperwork. I thought back. 3 years ago, Amelia had come over with papers, said it was power of attorney documentation. Just in case something happens to you, Charlotte, so I can help with medical decisions, so Ethan doesn't become a ward of the state. I'd signed, because it made sense, because I trusted her. She's been draining your account, Paul said. Small amounts at first so you wouldn't notice, then bigger as she got bolder. $52,000 over 3 years. The room spun. $52,000 from my savings, $39,000 from monthly payments, $91,000 total, plus whatever Austin had contributed. How much is in that offshore account? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Paul clicked back to the wire transfer record. As of November 4th, $105,612. Over $100,000. Gone. Sitting in some untraceable account on an island halfway across the world. Can we get it back? I asked. Paul's face was grave. Not easily. Offshore accounts are designed to be untraceable. No extradition treaties. No cooperation with U.S. law enforcement. Once the money's there, it's gone, I finished. Almost, Paul said. Unless we can stop them before they access it. He clicked to another window. 2 airline tickets appeared on screen. Flight A1842, route Baltimore/Washington BWI to Grand Cayman GCM. Date Monday, November 18th, 2024. Departure 10:45. AM passengers 1. Amelia M. Morrison 2. Dylan J. Reeves. I stared at the screen. That's in 5 days. 5 days, Paul confirmed. They're flying out Monday morning. One-way tickets. No return. I looked at the passenger list again. 2 names. Amelia, Dylan, no Austin, no Ethan. She's leaving them both, I said. She's abandoning her own son. Paul nodded. Looks that way. No passport application for Ethan. No ticket. No mention of him in any of the emails I found between Amelia and Dylan. Emails. I looked at him sharply. Paul pulled up another window. An email thread. From amemorison1986@gmail.com to dreeves.construction@gmail.com. Date November 10th, 2024. Subject no subject. Just 2 more months, babe. After that, we take everything and disappear. Austin won't know what hit him. I love you, D. Finally, we'll be free. No more pretending. I read it again, then a 3rd time. She's been planning this, I said slowly. For how long? Paul scrolled down. The emails go back 18 months, but I found evidence of an affair going back even further. Photos on social media deleted but still cached. Restaurant receipts. Hotel bookings. He paused. Charlotte, I think Amelia and Dylan have been together for at least 5 years. Maybe longer. 5 years. That would mean before Austin even went to Alaska. Does Austin know? I asked. I don't think so, Paul said. If he did, he wouldn't still be hiding. He'd be gone by now, or he'd have confronted them. I stared at the emails, at the casual cruelty in Amelia's words. Austin won't know what hit him. My son wasn't just being betrayed by his wife. He was being used, set up, played. And when Amelia and Dylan were done with him, they'd disappear with everything leaving him to take the fall. We need to move fast, Paul said. Once they're on that plane, the money's gone forever. We'll never see it again. I looked at the flight information. Monday, November 18th, 5 days away. In 120 hours, Amelia and Dylan would board that plane, fly to Grand Cayman, access that offshore account, and vanish. Then we don't let them get on that plane, I said. Paul looked at me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that Austin needs to know the truth. He deserves to know he's being betrayed too. Charlotte, I know, I said. I know it's risky, but if we're going to stop this, we need Austin's cooperation. We need his testimony. We need him to help us. Paul was quiet for a long moment. "Where do you think he is?" he asked finally. I thought about the security footage, about the man climbing those stairs every month. "Close," I said. "Somewhere in Baltimore. Somewhere he can get to Amelia's apartment in the middle of the night without being seen." Paul nodded slowly. "The warehouse. Dylan went to that warehouse on Ponca Street. If Austin's anywhere, he's there." I stood up, my legs shaky but steady. "Then that's where we go," I said. "Tonight." I couldn't wait for Paul to set up surveillance. I couldn't sit at home knowing Austin was out there, knowing Amelia was about to destroy him just like she'd destroyed me. Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m., I drove to the warehouse alone. Ponca Street was everything Paul had described. Industrial, run down, abandoned buildings with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. The kind of place people only went if they didn't want to be found. The warehouse at 2847 was a 3-story red brick building, boarded windows, a single dim bulb hanging above the entrance, weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot. I parked my Honda and sat there for 5 minutes trying to steady my breathing. Then I got out and walked to the door. I knocked, 3 times, loud. Footsteps inside, heavy, approaching. The door swung open. Dylan Reeves stood there, confused at first, then shocked. "Mrs. Morrison, what are you? How did you find—" I pushed past him and stepped inside. "Where is my son?" The warehouse interior was exactly what I'd imagined. Bare concrete floors, exposed pipes running along the ceiling, a sleeping bag in one corner, empty food containers scattered around, a camping stove on an overturned crate. The smell of old oil and stale air hit me immediately. But Austin wasn't there. "He's not here right now," Dylan said, recovering from his shock. I swear I turned on him. "Where is he?" Dylan backed up a step. He was bigger than me, broader, but something in my face made him retreat. "Mrs. Morrison, I can explain." "Explain what? That my son is alive, that you've been helping him hide for 4 years, that I've spent $39,000 supporting a lie." Dylan's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "Or maybe," I continued, voice rising, "you want to explain why you're sleeping with his wife?" His face went white. How did you—" I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo Paul had taken. Dylan and Amelia at Corner Brew, his hand on hers. 47 years, I said. "That's how long I've known Paul Henderson. He was a detective for 28 of those years. Did you really think you could hide this?" Dylan sank onto an overturned crate, put his head in his hands. "It's not what you think," he said quietly. "Then tell me what it is." He looked up at me. His eyes were red. "Austin does owe money, real money, to real dangerous people. The gambling debts, that part's true." "But," I prompted, "but the rest?" He trailed off. "Mrs. Morrison, Austin didn't want any of this to go this far. It was only supposed to be 6 months. Fake the death, hide out until the heat died down, then quietly resurface somewhere new." "Then why didn't he?" I asked. "Why has it been 4 years?" Dylan was quiet for a long moment. "Because Amelia saw an opportunity," he said finally. The truth came pouring out. Dylan had been in love with Amelia for years, since before she married Austin. They'd had an affair, brief secret, before the wedding. Then Amelia had ended it, chosen Austin. Dylan had stepped back, stayed friends with Austin out of loyalty and guilt. "Then Austin got into trouble," Dylan said. "Real trouble, the gambling debts. He owed $40,000 to a bookie connected to some bad people. People who break kneecaps first and ask questions later. So he faked his death," I said. "Yeah, he asked me to help. I couldn't say no, he's my best friend. Or he was." Dylan stood up, paced. "I helped him set up the fake death certificate. I introduced him to Robert Foster, the guy who played Mr. Bradley. I drove Austin to this warehouse. I brought him food and supplies." "And Amelia?" I asked. "When did she find out?" "Right away. Austin told her the plan before he even left. She was supposed to act grieving, collect sympathy, and wait for Austin to come back." Dylan's voice dropped. "But about 6 months in, Amelia contacted me. Said she needed help managing things. Said she was overwhelmed. So I started helping her. Bringing groceries. Helping with Ethan. Just being there." "And you started an affair," I said flatly. He nodded. "I'm not proud of it, but yeah, we did." When did you decide to steal everything and run? Dylan looked at me sharply. How did you— The offshore account, I said. Grand Cayman. The flight's on Monday. Did you think we wouldn't find out? Dylan's shoulders slumped. That was Amelia's idea. All of it. She said Austin was never going to leave this warehouse. Said he was too scared, too paranoid. Said we could take the money and start over somewhere new. Without Austin. Without Ethan. Amelia said— He stopped. She said Ethan would be better off with you, that you'd give him a good life, that we couldn't take a kid on the run. I felt sick. And what about the money I've been paying? I asked. The $800 a month? Dylan looked confused. What $800 a month? The debt payments, I said. Amelia said Austin owed $40,000 to loan sharks. She said I needed to pay $800 a month for 50 months to clear the debt. Dylan's face went from confused to horrified. Mrs. Morrison, Austin doesn't know about that. He thinks you're taking care of Ethan out of the goodness of your heart. He has no idea Amelia's been taking money from you. The warehouse seemed to tilt. He doesn't know, I repeated. No, I swear. Austin's been scraping together $300-400 a month from odd jobs he does under fake names. He sends it to Amelia thinking it's helping with rent and food, but I don't think Amelia ever told him about your payments. Then where is the $1,500 a month coming from? I asked. The money Amelia's been receiving every month. Dylan looked at the floor. Me. I sold my construction business 2 years ago. Got about $90,000 for it. I've been giving Amelia $1,500 a month thinking it was going to support her and Ethan while Austin was in hiding. My head spun. Austin didn't know about my payments. Dylan didn't know about the offshore account total. Everyone was being played. Where is Austin right now? I demanded. Dylan checked his watch. He moves between a few different locations, different warehouses, abandoned buildings. He's paranoid about being found, but he'll be here tonight, around 8. Good, I said, because he needs to know the truth. Mrs. Morrison, please, if you tell him about me and Amelia, he deserves to know, I said coldly. He deserves to know that his wife has been betraying him, that his best friend has been sleeping with her, that they're planning to take everything and run. I pulled out my phone and texted Paul. Found Dylan. Austin coming to warehouse tonight, 8 p.m. We need to be here. Dylan's phone buzzed. He looked at it. His face went pale. What is it? I asked. He showed me the screen. A text from Amelia, change of plans. Flight moved up to tomorrow Friday, 6 a.m. Meet me at the airport, 4:30 a.m. Bring nothing. Delete this message. Tomorrow. They weren't waiting until Monday. They were running in less than 16 hours. Paul arrived at the warehouse at 7:30 p.m. with his recording equipment. We'd called an emergency session. No time for elaborate plans. We had one shot at this. Dylan sat on a crate in the corner, looking like he wanted to disappear into the concrete floor. I paced. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. At 8:47 p.m., we heard footsteps outside. A key in the lock. The door opened. Austin Morrison walked in. Time stopped. 4 years. 4 years since I'd seen my son's face. He'd changed. Thinner. Beard grown out scraggly and unkempt. Hair longer pulled into a small ponytail. Dark circles under his eyes. He wore a faded hoodie and jeans with holes in the knees. Work boots caked with mud. He moved carefully, that familiar limp still present. Left leg not quite bending right. Left shoulder dipping with each step. He was halfway through the door when he saw me. His face went through a progression of emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, shock, fear, something that might have been shame. Mom, the word came out strangled, like he'd forgotten how to say it. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, just stared at this stranger wearing my son's face. He looked past me to Dylan. What the hell is she doing here? She knows, Dylan said quietly. She knows everything. Austin's face crumpled. No, you weren't supposed to. Close the door, Austin, I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Cold, hard. He closed it, slowly. We stood there in that dim warehouse, the single bulb casting harsh shadows across his face. Mom, I can explain. Explain. The word came out sharp. You want to explain? Explain how you've been alive for 4 years while I mourned you. Explain how you let your father die, thinking you were gone. Austin's face went white. Dad? How did he— Stroke, I said. The word tasted like ash. In the garage, 6 months after your funeral, he collapsed next to his toolbox. The left side of his face went slack. He died 3 days later without waking up. Austin staggered backward, hit the wall. No, I didn't. Didn't what? Didn't mean for it to happen, didn't think it would matter. My voice was rising now. 4 years of grief exploding outward. Your father spent 6 months sitting in that garage at 3 a.m. staring at nothing. He stopped eating, stopped sleeping. The doctor said it was depression. I said it was grief. I stepped closer. Do you know what his last words were? Austin shook his head mutely. Tell Austin I forgive him for not calling more often. He died thinking you were too busy in Alaska to call. He died believing you loved him but just didn't have time. Tears streamed down Austin's face. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he died of a broken heart, Austin. The medical report said stroke, but I know the truth. Your father's heart broke when Mr. Bradley knocked on our door with that fake death certificate and that urn full of lies. Mom, please. We buried you, I continued. My own tears were falling now. Your father and I stood at Oakwood Cemetery in the rain and watched them put that urn in the ground. He held my hand and cried. I'd never seen him cry before. Not once in 40 years of marriage. But he cried for you. Austin slid down the wall, sitting hard on the concrete floor. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't bring him back, I said. Sorry doesn't erase 4 years of lies. Paul stepped forward, recording device in hand. Austin, I'm Paul Henderson. I need you to confirm some things for the record. Austin nodded numbly. Did you fake your death in March 2020? Yes. Did you hire someone to impersonate a fishing company representative? Yes. His name was Robert Foster. I paid him $5,000. Did you provide a fake urn with fake ashes to your parents? Yes. Dylan got wood ash from a fireplace. We bought river stones from a garden center. Put them in an urn from a local crematorium. Each answer was a knife in my chest. Paul continued. Have you been hiding in Baltimore for the past 4 years? Yes. Have you been entering Amelia Morrison's apartment monthly using a key? Yes. Were you aware that Charlotte Morrison has been paying $800 a month to Amelia Morrison for the past 49 months? Austin looked up, his face confused. What? No, I didn't. What are you talking about? Paul glanced at me, then back to Austin. Your mother has paid Amelia $39,200 over 4 years. Amelia told her it was to pay off your gambling debts. Austin's mouth fell open. Mom, I didn't know about that. I swear. Then where did you think the money was coming from? I demanded. You've been visiting Amelia every month. You've been taking money from somewhere. I've been sending her $300-400 a month, Austin said. From odd jobs, cash work, construction moving jobs, anything I could do without showing a D. I thought that plus her waitressing job. She doesn't have a waitressing job, Paul said. She doesn't work at all. Austin stared at him. But she said she's been lying to you, I said, just like you've been lying to us. Paul pulled out his phone and showed Austin the bank records, the deposits, the LLC, the offshore account. $87,000 was transferred to Grand Cayman on November 4th, Paul said. Joint account held by Amelia Morrison and Dylan Reeves. Austin's head snapped toward Dylan. What? Dylan wouldn't meet his eyes. How long? Austin's voice was dangerous now. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? Austin, Dylan started. How long? 5 years, Dylan whispered. The warehouse went silent. 5 years. That meant before Austin even went to Alaska, before the fake death, before everything. You son of a bitch, Austin said quietly. You've been planning this from the beginning. It wasn't like that, Austin lunged. I'd forgotten how fast he could move even with the limp. He had Dylan by the collar, slammed him against the wall. Austin, stop! I grabbed his arm. Did you even love her? Austin shouted in Dylan's face. Or was it always about the money? I love her, Dylan said. I do. But Amelia what? Amelia made the plan, Dylan said. The offshore account, the flights, leaving you here, that was all her. Austin released him, stepped back. She's leaving tomorrow, Paul said into the silence. Flight at 6 a.m. She texted Dylan an hour ago, moving up the timeline. Austin turned to look at me, really look at me, for the first time since walking through that door. "Mom," he said, his voice broken. "What do I do?" And despite everything, despite 4 years of lies, despite Henry's death, despite 39,000 stolen dollars, he was still my son. "You help us stop her," I said. We spent the next 3 hours at Paul's kitchen table piecing together the full scope of the betrayal. Austin told us everything. The gambling debts were real. $40,000 owed to a bookie named Vincent Caruso, connected to organized crime. Very real threat of violence. "I was desperate," Austin said. "They were going to kill me, or hurt you, Mom, hurt Dad. I thought if I disappeared, if they thought I was dead, they'd write off the debt." "Did it work?" Paul asked. Austin shrugged. "I don't know. I've been too scared to check. I figured if they were still looking, I'd be dead by now." "Or," Paul said slowly, "the debt was paid." We all looked at him. "Think about it," Paul continued. $40,000. That's exactly what Amelia told Charlotte you owed. What if Amelia paid off the debt herself? "With what money?" Austin asked. Paul pulled up the bank records again. "Not her money. Charlotte's. Charlotte's been paying $800 a month for 49 months. That's $39,200. Close enough to $40,000. "But Charlotte thought she was paying loan sharks," I said. "Right. But what if Amelia wasn't giving the money to loan sharks? What if she was pocketing it, or putting it into that offshore account?" Austin's face went pale. "Are you saying the debt's been paid for years, and Amelia just kept taking Mom's money?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Paul replied. He pulled out another document. "I did some more digging, called in another favor. Vincent Caruso's gambling operation was shut down by the FBI in March 2022, 2.5 years ago. Caruso went to prison. His entire organization collapsed. Which means," I said slowly, "even if the debt wasn't paid, there's no one left to collect it." Austin put his head in his hands. "I could have come home 2 years ago. Could have come home 4 years ago if Amelia had just paid off the debt immediately," Paul said. "But she didn't want you to come home. She wanted you hidden, under her control, so she could collect money from Charlotte, collect money from Dylan, collect money from you, and plan her escape." "What about Henry's life insurance?" I asked. "The $150,000. I used $90,000 for the house and medical bills. $60,000 went to savings. But Paul found out Amelia's been draining my savings account." Paul nodded. $52,000 over 3 years. Small withdrawals at first, then larger. All authorized by power of attorney documents Amelia had Charlotte sign. "I remember that," I said bitterly. "She said it was just in case paperwork. For emergencies." "She used it to steal from you," Paul said flatly. He pulled out a calculator and started adding. Charlotte's monthly payments, $39,200. Charlotte's savings theft, $52,000. Austin's contributions, roughly $15,000 over 4 years. Dylan's contributions, roughly $36,000 over 2 years. Total approximately $142,000. The number hung in the air. "But the wire transfer was only $87,000, I said. "Right," Paul agreed. "Which means about $55,000 is still sitting in that Delaware LLC account. Probably waiting for Amelia to access it once she's safely out of the country." "Or," Austin said quietly, "she's already moved it, just hasn't updated the account I can see." Paul pulled up his laptop and typed rapidly. "Let me check something." We waited. The only sound was Paul's fingers on the keyboard. "Son of a bitch," Paul muttered. "What'd?" I leaned over. "Another transfer. Yesterday, November 13th, $54,800. To the same Cayman account." He turned the screen. "Account balance, Coastal Consulting Services, LLC, $247.19. She cleaned it out," Austin said. "Took everything. Current balance in the offshore account," Paul said, pulling up another window, "is $141,783. $141,000. My life savings, my monthly payments. Austin's 4 years of odd jobs, Dylan's business sale. All of it sitting in an account controlled by Amelia Morrison and Dylan Reeves, and in less than 10 hours they'd be on a plane to claim it." "We call the FBI," Paul said. "Right now, We have enough evidence for wire fraud, identity theft, embezzlement. They can stop Amelia at the airport. Will they have time? I asked. It's almost midnight. The flight's at 6 a.m. Paul was already dialing. I know someone at the Baltimore field office. We worked together on a task force 10 years ago. She owes me. He stepped into the other room to make the call. Dylan sat in the corner silent. He hadn't said much since Austin had confronted him, just sat there looking sick. Austin paced, that familiar limp, left leg dragging. I'd watched him walk like that for so many years, never imagining I'd see it again. "Mom," he said quietly, not looking at me. "I know you can't forgive me. I don't expect you to. But for what it's worth, I am sorry. About Dad. About everything." I looked at my son, this man who'd let his father die, who'd stolen 4 years of my life, who'd hidden while I grieved. "Sorry doesn't fix this," he said. "I know. But Del," I continued, "you're going to help us make it right. You're going to testify against Amelia. You're going to tell the FBI everything. You're going to face the consequences of what you've done." Austin nodded. "Whatever you need." Paul came back into the room. "Agent DeMarco is mobilizing a team now. They'll meet us at BWI at 5 a.m. We arrest Amelia and Dylan at the checkpoint." "What about me?" Dylan asked quietly. Paul looked at him with disgust. "You're under arrest too, soon as we get to the airport. But I'm helping." "You're complicit in everything Amelia did," Paul said. "You helped Austin fake his death. You stole money from Charlotte. You committed fraud. The only reason you're not in handcuffs right now is because we need you mobile for the airport operation." Dylan slumped. "Okay. What about Ethan?" I asked. "Where is he right now?" Austin pulled out a burner phone. "I can check. Amelia shares her location with this phone. She thinks it's just me." He opened an app. A map appeared with a blinking dot. "She's home," Austin said. 1305 Eastern Avenue, 4th floor. My apartment building, right above Victoria Hayes. "Is Ethan with her?" I asked. Austin checked another app, some kind of nanny cam. "Yeah, he's asleep on the couch. Looks like Amelia's packing." I saw the screen. My grandson, 7 years old, curled up on their threadbare sofa with a blanket. Completely innocent. No idea his mother was about to abandon him. "We need to get him," I said, "tonight, before she leaves." "Charlotte," Paul started. "No, I'm not leaving him there. What if she takes him? What if she changes her mind and decides to bring him along?" "She won't," Dylan said quietly. "She told me yesterday. Kids are baggage. We start fresh, just us two." The casual cruelty of it made me want to vomit. "Then he needs to be with me," I said firmly. "Now." Paul thought for a moment. "Okay, but we do this carefully. We don't spook Amelia. We don't let her know we're on to her." "How?" I asked. "You call her," Paul said. "Tell her you're sick. Tell her you need help. Ask if you can take Ethan for the night so she can rest. Make it sound like you're doing her a favor." I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. "What if she says no?" "Then we call child services," Paul said. "Report suspected child abandonment. They'll do a welfare check. But it's better if she gives him up voluntarily." I dialed Amelia's number. It rang 3 times. "Charlotte?" Her voice was irritated. "It's almost midnight." "I'm sorry to call so late," I said, made my voice weak, shaky. "I'm not feeling well. I think I might need to go to the ER, but I don't want to go alone. Could Ethan stay with you tonight? I know it's a lot to ask. You want me to bring Ethan to you?" Amelia's tone was suspicious. No, I said quickly. "I could come get him. I'd feel better having him with me, in case something happens, in case I need someone to call for help." There was a long pause. Then, "Fine, come get him. But Charlotte, I have an early morning tomorrow. I need him back by 7 a.m. at the latest." "Of course, thank you so much." I hung up. Paul looked at me. 7 a.m., 2 hours after her flight takes off. She was never planning to tell me, I said quietly. She was just going to disappear. Leave him alone in that apartment. How long before someone would have found him? Austin's face was ashen. "I need to see him, before we go to the airport. I need to tell him." "No," Paul said firmly. "You cannot see him. You're legally dead. If Ethan sees you, if he tells anyone, the whole operation falls apart. Amelia runs. We lose everything. But he's my son. And you gave up the right to see him when you faked your death, Paul said. Not unkindly, but firmly. After this is over, after Amelia's in custody, we'll figure out how to handle the situation with Ethan. But right now, he cannot know you're alive. Austin looked like he might argue. Then he just nodded. Okay, I stood up. I'm going to get my grandson. I'll meet you all at the airport at 5 a.m. I'm coming with you, Paul said. We headed for the door. Behind us, Austin sat down heavily on a crate. Dylan was still in his corner. Two men who'd destroyed so many lives sitting in a warehouse full of lies. Tomorrow, it would all end. Paul and I drove to 1305 Eastern Avenue in silence. It was 12:47 a.m. The streets were empty. Baltimore at night always had an edge to it. Shadows in doorways, the distant sound of siren steam rising from sewer grates. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like an ending. We parked 2 blocks away. Didn't want Amelia seeing Paul's car and getting suspicious. You ready? Paul asked. I nodded. My hands were steady now. After everything I'd learned tonight, after all the lies I'd uncovered, I felt strangely calm. I was taking my grandson home. That's all that mattered right now. We walked to the building, climbed those familiar 68 steps. My knees protested, but I ignored them. 4th floor, door 4B. I knocked 3 times. Soft, so I wouldn't wake Ethan. Amelia opened the door immediately, like she'd been waiting. She was fully dressed, black jeans, dark sweater. Her hair was down unusual for her. She looked different, younger somehow, excited. Of course she was excited. In 5 hours, she'd be on a plane with $140,000 and the man she actually loved. Charlotte, she stepped aside. Come in. He's on the couch. I walked into the apartment. Paul stayed in the hallway out of sight. The living room was a mess, suitcases open on the floor, clothes scattered everywhere, Ethan's toys shoved into a corner like trash waiting to be taken out. And there on the threadbare sofa was my grandson, asleep, clutching a stuffed dolphin, the one I'd bought him at the aquarium 6 months ago. My heart broke and mended at the same time. Let me get his things, Amelia said. She grabbed a backpack from the hall closet, started shoving clothes into it. Random items, a shirt, mismatched socks, a pair of pajamas. She wasn't packing carefully. She was packing like someone who didn't care if the clothes matched or if he had enough underwear, because she wasn't planning to see him again. Will you need anything else? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Medicine, his allergy medication. Oh, right. Amelia went to the bathroom, came back with a bottle of children's Benadryl, tossed it in the bag. That was it. That was all she thought her son would need. Thank you so much for this, I say as you said. I really wasn't feeling well. I think it might be my blood pressure again. It's fine. Amelia zipped the backpack. Just have him back by 7 a.m. I have a thing. An appointment. A thing. An appointment. A one-way flight to Grand Cayman. Of course, I said. 7 a.m. I walked to the couch, knelt down beside Ethan, gently touched his shoulder. Sweetheart, it's Grandma. His eyes opened slowly, confused. Grandma? Hey, baby. I'm not feeling well, so you're going to have a sleepover at my house tonight. That okay? He nodded sleepily. Okay. I helped him stand. He was still mostly asleep, leaning against me. I picked up the backpack with one hand, supported him with the other. Say goodbye to your mom, sweetheart. Bye, Mom, Ethan mumbled. Amelia stood by the door, arms crossed, face unreadable. Bye, baby, she said. That was it. No hug, no kiss on the forehead, no I love you, just bye, baby, like he was going to school, not like she was abandoning him forever. I walked past her, into the hallway. Paul was waiting by the stairs. He took the backpack from me. I carried Ethan. We made it down all 68 steps. I didn't feel my knees once. Behind us, I heard Amelia's door close. Lock, deadbolt slide home. And I absolutely knew she'd already forgotten about him. I laid Ethan down in my guest bedroom, the room that used to be Austin's. The walls still had posters from his high school years. Football team photos. Concert tickets taped above the desk. Ethan didn't notice. He was asleep again before his head hit the pillow. I tucked the blanket around him. smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "You're safe now," I whispered. "I promise. You're safe." Paul stood in the doorway. "Charlotte, it's 1:30. We need to be at the airport by 5. "I know. That gives you 3 hours to sleep." I looked at Paul. "I'm not going to sleep." "Then at least rest. Lie down. Close your eyes." But I couldn't. Instead, I went to the living room, sat in my recliner, stared at Henry's photograph. "We're going to get justice tomorrow, honey," I told the picture. "For you, for me, for Ethan, for all of us." Paul made coffee. We sat in silence drinking it, watching the clock tick toward morning. At 4:30 a.m., Victoria Hayes knocked on my door. I'd called her earlier, asked if she could watch Ethan. "Of course, dear," she said now, stepping inside. "You go do what you need to do. The boy will be safe with me." I showed her where everything was. Food, clothes, emergency contacts. "Victoria," I said, "if something goes wrong, if I don't come back—" "Nothing's going to go wrong," she said firmly. "You're going to get justice, and you're going to come home to that boy. Now go." BWI Airport at 5:15 a.m. was surprisingly crowded. Early morning flights to Florida, business travelers heading to New York, families starting vacations. We met Agent Sarah DeMarco at the Delta Airlines ticket counter. She was exactly what I'd imagined a FBI agent would look like, mid-40s, dark suit, no-nonsense expression eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Morrison," she shook my hand. Firm grip. "Paul's told me everything. I've got 6 agents positioned throughout the terminal, 2 at TSA checkpoint, 2 at the gate, 2 mobile." "What about Dylan?" I asked. "He's already here, wearing a wire. He texted Amelia 20 minutes ago saying he's at the airport waiting at their meeting spot. Will she suspect anything?" "Not if we do this right," Agent DeMarco has said. "The key is letting her get as far into the terminal as possible. The deeper she goes, the more criminal intent we can prove. If we grab her in the parking lot, she can claim she was just dropping Dylan off. But if we get her past security at the gate with boarding passes in hand—" "It's conspiracy to commit wire fraud," Paul finished. "Exactly." Agent DeMarco checked her watch. "Flight board's at 6:20. She should be here any minute." Austin was with us. He wore a baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses even though it was barely dawn. Paul had insisted he stay back out of sight. "If Amelia sees you," Paul had said, "she'll run, or she'll cause a scene. Either way, we lose control of the situation." So Austin stood 20 feet away, partially hidden behind a support column, close enough to watch, far enough to stay invisible. I could feel the tension radiating off him. His son was home with me. His wife was about to be arrested. His best friend had betrayed him. 4 years of lies all coming to an end in the next 30 minutes. "There," Paul pointed. A silver Honda Accord pulled up to the departure's curb. Amelia's car. She got out, pulled 2 large suitcases from the trunk. Designer luggage. Expensive looking. Bought with my money, probably. She wore black yoga pants and a gray hoodie. Hair in a ponytail. Sunglasses. Trying to look casual. Unremarkable. But I could see the excitement in her movements. The way she walked, quick, purposeful. Someone about to start a new life. She headed straight for the Delta check-in counter. "All unit subject is approaching check-in," Agent DeMarco said quietly into her radio. "Stand by." We watched Amelia check her bags. The agent at the counter tagged them, handed her a boarding pass. Amelia smiled. Actually smiled. A real, genuine smile I'd never seen her give anyone except Dylan. "She's heading to security," Paul murmured. Agent DeMarco spoke into her radio again. "Let her through. Repeat, let her through. We take her at the gate." My hands were clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms. Amelia walked to the TSA checkpoint, placed her bag on the conveyor belt, removed her shoes, walked through the metal detector. No alarms, no stops. She collected her things and headed toward the concourse. "Gate B12, Agent DeMarco said. 10-minute walk. Dylan's waiting there." We followed at a distance. Me, Paul, Austin, Agent DeMarco, plus the 2 mobile agents flanking us, through the terminal, past coffee shops and bookstores, past families and business travelers. I'd never been so aware of my heartbeat. It thundered in my ears, loud enough that I was sure everyone could hear it. Gate B12 came into view, and there was Dylan, sitting in a chair near the window, 2 carry-on bags at his feet, looking at his phone. He glanced up, saw Amelia approaching, stood. They met in the middle of the seating area, and they kissed. Not a quick peck. A real kiss. Long, intimate. The kind of kiss that said we made it, except they hadn't made it. Agent DeMarco nodded to her team. 2 agents in suits stepped forward, badges out. Amelia Morrison, Dylan Reeves, FBI. You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit identity theft. Time seemed to slow down. Amelia's face went through every emotion in 3 seconds. Confusion, shock, fear, rage. What no? There's been a mistake. No mistake, ma'am, the agent said. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Dylan didn't move. He just stood there frozen. The other agent moved toward him. Mr. Reeves, you're under arrest as well. That's when Dylan tried to run. He spun around, headed for the concourse. But 2 more agents appeared blocking his path. They grabbed his arms, forced him to the ground. Let go of me, Dylan shouted. Travelers stopped, pulled out phones, started recording. Amelia's eyes darted around wildly, looking for an escape, looking for help. That's when she saw me. I'd stepped out from behind Agent DeMarco, wanted her to see my face, wanted her to know. Charlotte, her voice cracked. What are you doing here? I walked forward slowly, deliberately. I'm here to watch you get what you deserve. Then she saw Austin. He'd moved closer, pulled off the baseball cap, removed the sunglasses. Amelia staggered backward, hit a chair, nearly fell. Austin, you're supposed to be... Supposed to be what? Austin stepped forward. His voice was cold. Hiding, waiting, trusting you. I don't understand. You're lying, I said. That's what you do, Amelia. You lie. To me. To Austin. To your own son. The agent pulled Amelia's arms behind her back. Handcuffs clicked into place. This is insane, Amelia screamed. Charlotte, tell them this is a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, I said quietly, was me thinking you were a good person, thinking you cared about Ethan, thinking you needed my help. I did need your help. I was struggling. You were stealing, Paul said, stepping forward. $141,000. From Charlotte, from Austin, from Dylan, all sitting in your offshore account. The account you were about to access. Amelia's face went white. You don't have any proof. Agent DeMarco held up a folder. We have 4 years of bank records, wire transfers, email communications, text messages, recorded confessions. We have everything, Mrs. Morrison. She pulled out a piece of paper, read from it. Email from Amelia Morrison to Dylan Reeves, November 10th. Just 2 more months, babe. After that, we take everything and disappear. Austin won't know what hit him. Dylan closed his eyes, still on the ground, handcuffed. You sent that from your Gmail account, Agent DeMarco continued. Did you know Gmail keeps deleted emails in cache for up to 90 days? We recovered everything. Amelia started crying. Real tears this time. Not the fake ones she'd used on me for 4 years. I want a lawyer, she sobbed. You'll get one, Agent DeMarco said. At the Federal Detention Center, you're being charged with wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and child endangerment. Child endangerment? Amelia's head snapped up. You were going to abandon your 7-year-old son, I sassy said. My voice shook with rage. You were going to leave him alone in that apartment. How long before someone would have found him? A day, 2 days, a week. I knew you'd take care of him. You abandoned him. My voice rose. Other travelers were staring now. I didn't care. You took my money. You destroyed my family. You let my husband die thinking our son was gone. And for what? For money for him. I pointed at Dylan. You threw away everything, your marriage, your son, your integrity for $100,000, and a coward who helped you steal it. Amelia had no answer. Just stood there crying, handcuffed, destroyed. The agents led her away. Led Dylan away. Through the terminal, past the crowds, past the phone cameras, past the shocked faces. Austin stood beside me. We watched them disappear around a corner. It's over, he said quietly. No, I replied. This is just the beginning. They kept Amelia and Dylan in federal custody. No bail, flight risk. Over the next 3 days, the full scope of the conspiracy came out. Amelia confessed everything. Not out of remorse, but because Agent DeMarco offered her a deal full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. The truth was worse than we'd imagined. Amelia and Dylan's affair had started 5 years ago, before Austin even got into gambling trouble. They'd meet at hotels, cheap motels on the outskirts of Baltimore, places where no one would recognize them. When Austin came to Dylan talking about his gambling debts, Dylan had seen an opportunity. "What if we made the debt go away?" Dylan had suggested. How Austin had asked. "What if you weren't alive to owe it?" The plan was Dylan's idea, but Amelia had embraced it, improved it, made it more elaborate. The fake death, the fake urn. Mr. Bradley actually, Robert Foster, an out-of-work actor Dylan knew from a community theater group. Austin was supposed to hide for 6 months, then quietly move to another state, get a new identity, start over, but Amelia had other plans. "I realized," she told Agent DeMarco in her recorded confession, "that if Austin stayed dead, I could collect sympathy. I could get money from Charlotte. I could position myself as the struggling widow, and eventually Dylan and I could disappear together." "What about your son?" Agent DeMarco had asked. Amelia's answer was chilling. "I figured Charlotte would take him. She always wanted to be more involved anyway." No remorse, no guilt, just cold calculation. Dylan's confession was similar. He'd genuinely loved Amelia, or he thought he did. He'd convinced himself that they were star-crossed lovers kept apart by Austin. "I thought if Austin was gone, we could finally be together," Dylan said. "But Austin wasn't gone," Agent DeMarco pointed out. "You knew he was alive. You brought him food. You helped him hide." "I know." Dylan's voice was flat. "But in my head, he was gone. It was easier to think of him as dead than as my best friend who I was betraying." The offshore account had been Amelia's idea. She'd set it up 18 months ago after watching a documentary about tax havens. Slowly, methodically, she'd funneled money into it. My $800 a month. Dylan's $1,500 a month. Austin's $300 to $400 from odd jobs. And my life savings. $52,000 stolen slowly over 3 years through that power of attorney I'd signed. She'd been patient, careful, planning every detail, until we caught her. Paul and I sat in his kitchen on Sunday morning reading through the final police reports. "Henry's insurance money," Paul said quietly. "Did you know Amelia tried to get access to that too?" I looked up sharply. "What He showed me a document. An application for death benefits dated 8 months after Henry died. She filed a claim saying she was Henry's dependent daughter-in-law, needed help with medical bills for Ethan. The insurance company denied it because she wasn't listed as a beneficiary, but she tried. I felt sick. "She was going to take everything," I said. "Yeah, she was." My phone rang. Austin's burner phone number. "Mom," his voice was tentative. Can I come by? I need to talk to you about Ethan." I looked at Paul. He nodded. "Come over," I said. "We need to discuss what happens next." Austin arrived an hour later. He looked better. He'd shaved, cut his hair, borrowed clean clothes from Paul. Without the beard and long hair, he looked more like my son, the boy I'd raised, the man Henry had been proud of. We sat in my living room. Ethan was at Victoria's playing with her grandson. He still didn't know any of this was happening. "I talked to a lawyer," Austin said. "Paul's friend Mark Davidson. He says I'm still facing charges. Faking my death, identity fraud. Probably 3 to 5 years in prison." "Probably," I agreed. But he also said if I cooperate fully, testify against Amelia, explain my mental state showed genuine remorse, the judge might be lenient. "Might be," I said. Austin looked at his hands. "I deserve prison. I know that. What I did to you to Dad, there's no excuse." "No," I agreed. "There isn't." "But Ethan," his voice broke. "What happens to Ethan?" "He stays with me," I said firmly. "I've already filed for emergency custody. With Amelia in federal detention and you legally deceased, I'm his closest living relative." "When this is all over," Austin said slowly, "when I get out of prison, can I see him?" I was quiet for a long time. "That depends," I finally said. "On what?" "On whether you're actually sorry, on whether you use your prison time to become a better person, on whether you actually prove that you've changed." Austin nodded. I will. I promise. Don't make promises, I said. Make changes. Show me through actions, not words. Okay. We sat in silence. Then Austin said, Mom, can I ask you something? Why did you forgive me after everything I did? Why are you still helping me? I looked at Henry's photograph on the side table, his smile, his kind eyes. Because that's what parents do, I said quietly. We love our children even when they break our hearts. We forgive them even when they don't deserve it. We keep hoping they'll be better than they are. I looked back at Austin. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. You're going to prison. You're going to lose years of your life. You're going to miss Ethan growing up. And that's on you. Not me. Not Amelia. You. I know. Good. Then make those years count for something. 3 months later, we sat in a federal courtroom. Judge Patricia Coleman presiding. 61 years old. 20 years on the bench. Known for being fair but harsh on white-collar crime. Ethan sat beside me holding my hand. Paul was on my other side. Victoria Hayes sat behind us for moral support. The prosecution had built an airtight case. Bank records, email evidence, recorded confessions, testimony from Austin, from Dylan, from me. Amelia's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, tried to claim she was abused by Austin, that she feared for her safety, that she was protecting Ethan. But the emails told a different story. Austin won't know what hit him. That wasn't fear. That was contempt. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Dylan's trial was faster. He'd already pleaded guilty, just waited for sentencing. Austin's case was more complicated. His lawyer argued that he was also a victim manipulated by Amelia and Dylan. He showed evidence of Austin's deteriorating mental health, his gambling addiction, his desperation. The jury found him guilty of identity fraud and filing false documents, but showed leniency on some charges. Sentencing day came in late February. Judge Coleman looked over her reading glasses at Amelia. Mrs. Morrison, you stood in front of me 3 months ago and swore you were acting in your son's best interest. The evidence shows otherwise. She consulted her notes. You systematically defrauded your mother-in-law out of $91,000. You planned to abandon your 7-year-old child. You showed no remorse until faced with overwhelming evidence. This court finds your actions particularly heinous. Amelia stood there thinner, now crying. You are sentenced to 15 years in federal prison followed by 5 years supervised release. You will make full restitution of $141,783 to Charlotte Morrison. The gavel came down. 15 years. Ethan squeezed my hand. Is Mom going away for a long time, Grandma? Yes, sweetheart, I said, a very long time. Okay, he said simply. At 7 years old, he didn't fully understand, but he understood enough. Dylan Reeves was next. Mr. Reeves, Judge Coleman said, you betrayed your best friend. You helped orchestrate an elaborate fraud. You showed poor judgment repeatedly over several years. However, she continued, you did ultimately cooperate with authorities. You wore a wire. You testified truthfully. The court acknowledges your remorse appears genuine. You are sentenced to 10 years in federal prison followed by 3 years supervised release. Joint restitution with Mrs. Morrison. Dylan nodded, didn't look up. 10 years. Finally Austin. He stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit. He'd been in custody for 3 months already, looked thin, tired, but also lighter somehow, like confessing had lifted a weight. Mr. Morrison, Judge Coleman said, your case is unique. You did not set out to defraud your mother. You were genuinely in danger from your gambling debts. Your initial actions, while illegal, were driven by fear. However, you maintained the deception for 4 years. You allowed your father to die thinking you were gone. You caused immeasurable pain to your family. She paused. The court finds that you were also victimized by Mrs. Morrison and Mr. Reeves. They manipulated your situation for their own gain. They lied to you just as they lied to others. You are sentenced to 8 years in federal prison with eligibility for parole after 4 years. You must complete psychological counseling. You must maintain a relationship with your son through supervised correspondence. 8 years. Austin looked at me, tears streaming down his face. I nodded. It was fair. Harsh, but fair. In the hallway afterward, Austin asked to speak with me. The marshal allowed it 5 minutes supervised. "Mom," Austin said, "I'm sorry for everything." "I know," I said. "Will you bring Ethan to visit me after I've served some time?" "Maybe," I said. "If you prove you've changed, if the counselors say you're ready, if Ethan wants to." "That's fair," Austin said. The marshal touched his arm. Time was up. Austin looked at me one more time. "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me." "I'm your mother," I said simply. "I'll never give up on you, but I'll also never let you hurt us again." He nodded, understanding. They led him away. 1 month after the trial, I received a check from the government. $141,783. Full restitution. Seized from the offshore account before Amelia and Dylan could access it. I sat at my kitchen table with a notepad planning. House repairs $20,000. New roof. Update electrical. Fix the garage where Henry had his stroke. Ethan's education trust $80,000. Locked until he turned 18. For college, or trade school, or whatever he wanted. Emergency savings $25,000. Rebuilt from nothing. Donation to stroke research $10,000. In Henry's name. Remaining $6,783 for whatever we needed. I wasn't rich, but we'd be okay. 2 weeks later, I reopened Morrison's Alterations properly. Full schedule, new sign out front, and I had a new assistant. "Okay, sweetheart," I said to Ethan. "Let me show you how to thread a needle." He sat at the small table I'd set up beside my sewing machine. His tongue poked out in concentration as he tried to push the thread through the eye. "That's it, nice and slow." "I got it." He held up the threaded needle triumphantly. "Perfect. Now let's practice some basic stitches." I showed him how to make small, even stitches along a piece of scrap fabric. He worked carefully, seriously, taking it as seriously as any job. "Grandma, yes, baby. Do you think Dad is okay?" I paused. We'd had this conversation before, several times, but he kept coming back to it. "I think your dad is exactly where he needs to be," I said carefully. "He made some very bad choices, and now he's learning from them, growing, becoming better." "Will I ever see him again?" "Maybe," I said. "When you're older, when he's ready, if you want to." Ethan thought about this. "Okay." He went back to his stitching. This child, this resilient, beautiful, innocent child. He'd been through so much. Lost his mother to prison. Discovered his father wasn't dead, but also wasn't there. But he was okay. He was with me. He was safe. And I would make sure he stayed that way. Sunday afternoon, Ethan and I drove to Oakwood Cemetery. We brought fresh daisies for Henry's grave. Ethan carried them carefully, not spilling a single petal. I knelt down, placed the flowers on the headstone. "Hi, honey," I said softly. "We did it. Justice has been served. Ethan is safe. I kept my promise." Ethan knelt beside me, put his small hand on the gravestone. "Hi, Grandpa," he said. "Grandma talks about you a lot. She says you were really smart and really kind. I wish I remembered you better." My throat tightened. "You know what, Grandpa?" Ethan continued. "Grandma's teaching me to sew. She says Dad used to learn this stuff from you, and now I'm learning from Grandma. So it's like you're still teaching me, kind of." I put my arm around him. "That's exactly right, sweetheart. Grandpa is still teaching you, through me." We sat there for a while, the afternoon sun warm on our backs, birds singing in the trees around us. Finally, Ethan said, "Grandma, can we go home now? I want to practice my stitches some more." I smiled. "Of course we can." That evening, I tucked Ethan into bed. Austin's old room, but we'd redecorated. New paint, new posters, made it Ethan's. "Grandma," Ethan said sleepily, "what's the most important thing in life?" I thought about Henry, about Austin, about all the lies and betrayals and heartbreak of the past 4 years. But I also thought about this moment, this boy, this second chance. "The most important thing," I said slowly, "is to love, honestly, forgive when you can, and protect the people who can't protect themselves." Ethan nodded. "I can do that." "I know you can, sweetheart." His eyes closed. Within minutes, he was asleep. I stood in the doorway watching him, this innocent child who'd been caught in the middle of adult lies and greed. But he was safe now, loved, protected. And I would spend the rest of my life making sure he knew he was worth more than any amount of money. Worth more than lies, or schemes, or betrayals. He was worth everything. 6 months later, I received a letter from Austin. The return address was Cumberland Federal Prison. I almost didn't open it, almost threw it away. But I didn't. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Dear Mom, I'm writing this during my therapy session. Dr. Williams says I should practice expressing myself honestly. So here goes. I can't take back what I did. I can't bring Dad back. I can't give you those 4 years. I know that. But I want you to know I'm trying. Really trying. I've been going to therapy 3 times a week. Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week. I'm taking classes, got my GED. Yeah, I know I should have finished high school. Now I'm studying business management. I think about Ethan every day, about what kind of father I could have been, what kind I still might be if I get the chance. Dr. Williams says I need to let go of the guilt while still taking responsibility. I'm working on it. Tell Ethan I love him. If he wants to write to me, I'd love that. But I understand if he doesn't. I understand if you don't want me in his life at all. Thank you for giving me a second chance, even if I don't deserve it. Love, Austin. I read it 3 times. Then I went to my desk and pulled out stationery. Dear Austin, I'm glad you're getting help. Keep going to therapy. Keep attending meetings. Keep working on yourself. In 2 years, when you're eligible for supervised visits, we'll talk about you seeing Ethan. But only if your therapist and the prison counselor agree you're ready. Ethan is thriving. He's doing well in school. He's learning to sew. He asks about you sometimes. I tell him you're working on becoming a better person. That's all he needs to know right now. Don't ask me for forgiveness again. Just keep working. Keep changing. Prove it through actions, not words. Mom, I sealed the letter, addressed it, stamped it. Tomorrow I'd mail it. Tonight I went to the living room, sat in my recliner, looked at Henry's photograph. We're going to be okay, I told him. Ethan and me. Austin maybe eventually. We're going to be okay. The photograph smiled back at me, that same kind smile I'd fallen in love with 47 years ago. And for the first time in 4 years, I felt at peace. 1 year later, Ethan's 8th birthday party was small but perfect. Victoria Hayes and her grandson, Paul Henderson, a few kids from school. We held it at Morrison's Alterations. I'd expanded the shop, added a small classroom space. Now I taught sewing classes twice a week, mostly to kids, teaching them a skill that might serve them someday. Ethan showed off the stuffed bear he'd made himself. He'd sewn it completely on his own, choosing the fabric, cutting the pattern, stitching every seam. I made it myself, he announced proudly to anyone who would listen. I watched him from across the room, this confident, happy, well-adjusted boy. You'd never know what he'd been through. Paul appeared at my elbow. You did good, Charlotte. We did good, I corrected. I couldn't have done this without you. How's Austin? Paul asked quietly. Making progress. His therapist says he's ready for a phone call with Ethan. We're going to try it next week. You think Ethan's ready? I watched my grandson laughing with his friends. I think we'll find out. Later, after everyone had gone home and Ethan was asleep, I sat at my sewing machine, working on a quilt. I'd been making it for months. Each square represented something. A piece of Henry's old work shirt, a scrap of fabric from Austin's baby blanket, part of my wedding dress, new fabric I'd bought for Ethan's future, sewing them together, creating something beautiful from broken pieces. That's what we were doing. All of us. Taking broken pieces, broken trust, broken hearts, broken families, and stitching them back together. Creating something new, not the same as before, better, stronger. I ran my hand over the quilt, each stitch a tiny act of faith, each square a memory, some painful, some beautiful, all part of our story. This is how we heal, I said aloud to the empty shop, 1 stitch at a time. Outside Baltimore settled into night. Streetlights flickered on. Somewhere a siren wailed. Normal city sounds. Inside I kept sewing, healing, growing, moving forward, 1 stitch at a time.